They're good? All right, we're recording, and I've got my great, amazing friend Adam Lacy here today, a Healing Humanity movie. And I met Adam along with Kerry Mann and Homestead How in creating this new adventure, a movie that talks about healing with carnivore. And I know personally I healed with carnivore after being on every diet imaginable. And I'm really excited to bring Adam here to tell us about his story. And without further ado, I'm just going to let Adam tell his story because he does the best job at it. Adam, thank you for being here.
Absolutely, Dr. Kiltz. So I just want to say thank you for having me on. It's such an honor to spend this time with you and sharing this experience and help, maybe share my story a little bit and hopefully inspire some others that healing is possible. There is hope. Absolutely. And so as Rob mentioned, I'm involved with the project Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, which is a documentary that was basically Kerry Mann had such a profound change in his health from the Homestead How channel that he decided, you know what, I can't believe that I was never told that nutrition could help heal myself, heal my mental health that he struggled with for so many years. He was so inspired that he decided to do a documentary on this way of eating. And I saw his passion and decided, I need to do what I can to try to help him out because I had similar healing. Mine didn't happen necessarily right away, and we'll get into that. But I was so inspired by him and his desire to help others that I sent him an email. I said, hey, whatever I need to do, I'll sweep the floors if I have to. I feel like I need to be involved in this project and offer my services to you. I am a professional photographer. I was a photojournalist for roughly 12 years, and I kind of have an eye for things that look good in the world to show other people. And so I expected no response from him. It was literally, he had 75,000 subscribers on his channel. And at least to me back then, that was a ton. And there's no possible way that he's going to reply to me. He just isn't going to have the time. And within 24 hours, he replied back. And for whatever reason, he's like, yeah, sure. Let's do this thing. And that's where it all started. And I believe that was around June of 2023. So it's been over a year now, well over a year and a half that we've been involved in this project. So at any rate, so let's get back to my healing story. So forever, I was a horrible eater, experimented with the Atkins diet, with Weight Watchers. I wasn't really that much overweight. I always teetered between 50 and 100 pounds overweight. And always failed on those diets because that's exactly what it was. It was a diet. It wasn't really a solution. It wasn't a lifestyle. And I always struggled with that. And, I didn't want to be fit or just, not have the fat because I was vain. It was just, I didn't feel good and I wanted to be fit and feel good. And I just couldn't find a solution. So fast forward a little bit, started a business, got married to my beautiful wife, and have 2 sons, by the way. Awesome boys. So at that point, after starting the business, things started to go south for my health because of the amount of stress. I didn't know how to manage my stress and just started to pack on weight, and things started to get worse. I started an additional business with a business partner, and at some point he contracted cancer, prostate cancer. Wow. And he decided that he was going to go on a vegan diet to solve this problem. Because a friend of his 17 years prior had actually kicked the prostate cancer's butt, and it hadn't come back. So he decided this was the path for him. Now, mind you, I was still eating standard American diet at that point. So I didn't really know anything about vegan, and I decided I'll do this in solidarity with you. Well, fast forward a little bit. Even though I hated vegetables, I was doing this raw vegan diet. It was absolutely disgusting. I hated all of everything that I was eating every single day for almost 2 years. Well, I started to develop symptoms of vitiligo on my arms. Now, I had already had this for years and years from the standard American diet prior around my waist, and it just started to show up on my arms. And I thought, you know what? I need to really try to research this and see if there is a solution, because doctors basically said without really, really expensive treatments that I couldn't afford, this is likely going to just continue, right? It may stop for a while. It's probably not going to get any better, but it's more than likely going to spread over time. So after seeing it on my arms, visibly where other people can see it, I thought, oh my gosh, this may end up on my face. And at that point, it did start to get vain for me. I'm like, I just didn't want to be in an awkward situation, having to describe, what are these white patches all over my face, because my skin is so tanned. So at any rate, I did a YouTube search, and, is there a way to heal or basically reverse vitiligo? And I came across a video from Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's video, he actually describes this same issue that he has, vitiligo, and it started to reverse on a carnivore diet. And I thought,
Wow,
that is wild. Like, I never heard of the carnivore diet. It sounded so foreign to me. So anyways, I went down the rabbit hole, searched for the carnivore diet. I found Dante Ferrigno from Ferrigno Freedom, and his testimony, where he had his transformation video over a period of, I believe it was a year, was just so mind-blowing to me. It was so interesting that I did some more research, and I found Dr. Berry, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Kiltz, yourself, and MDs that were actually verifying that this was a legitimate way to eat, because it flies in the face of everything that we're ever taught with the food pyramid. So obviously there was some apprehension on my part. So I'm a risk taker. So I just decided I'm going all in. I'm going to try it. What have I got to lose? I've tried everything else to this point to try to fix my health. And they're claiming that you can lose weight with this and all sorts of other things. 3 days in, plantar fasciitis that I had for 2 years, gone. I mean, I had plantar fasciitis so bad that I could only stand for about 30 minutes, and then I'd have to sit down for 2 hours because the pain was so intense.
Wow.
Yeah. I had to spend $250 on pairs of shoes to try to relieve the pain for this, wear a boot at night. And so I've been carnivore now for almost 2 years, and that pain has not come back. It just blows my mind. After 3 days, it's gone and hasn't come back. So that was basically the start of my journey. I don't know if you have any questions as far as what I've covered already.
Well, what are your thoughts on the why part of this? I mean, you must have sort of like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Why is it I went from standard to vegan? My physical and nature problems were getting worse, and then I went carnivore. What were your thoughts on the whys of this?
That's a good question. So I didn't really, when I went from standard American diet, it was so bad, Rob. I basically was eating boxes of Nutty Bars. So going from that to vegan, and I guess looking back now, it is interesting that my health was getting worse eating something that most people would deem to be like uber or super healthy, right? Raw vegan, raw plants, as much spinach as you can. And
it's organic and natural. Yeah. It's what nature created, whole foods, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, isn't that just part of the whole food movement of the vegetables are so good for us, right?
Absolutely. And I spent the extra money on the healthier version, the organic foods. And it just blows my mind that my health conditions were actually getting worse. The brain fog was just, I couldn't believe, I just couldn't make connections. The depression got worse. The anxiety got worse. Now I'm the kind of person that I was raised, be a man. You don't talk to people about your problems and your issues and things like that. You just suck it up. So I'm one of those people that I never went on medication because I was never going to go see anyone for mental health. At the time I was into, freedom movement and things like that. And you can't, if you have to write down on a form when you purchase a firearm that you have any kind of mental health condition, that might preclude you from actually being able to do that. And I did firearms as a sport, right? I did skeet shooting and trap shooting and stuff like that. It wasn't necessarily for, hunting or anything like that. But anyways, that was a fear of mine. I didn't want to not be able to go get the newest version of what I thought was going to help me in my sport. So I never sought out help. Probably should have. It affected every area of my life, business, my relationships with my children. I wasn't there for my children, nowhere near as much as I should be. And plant-based, it just made it worse. And then transitioning to carnivore, it blew my mind that so many things could heal so quickly just by changing what I was eating. I'm shopping from this section of the grocery store instead of this section of the grocery store. Mind blown.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So years ago, I had incorporated acupuncture, massage, meditation, prayer, yoga into a fertility treatment, and to help people de-stress, because stress is one of our biggest problems that we just don't know how to handle very well. And we are sort of blaming that for all of our problems. And I found paleo diet. People were getting pregnant. So my patients were telling me they did paleo diet, got pregnant. And then I know for myself, I had arthritis, psoriasis, migraines, kidney stones, bowel bleeding, depression, and anxiety. I went paleo and I felt better. And it was sort of like the down the rabbit hole I went, paleo, keto, and then I found carnivore. And then I found all the amazing people like yourself that were sharing their experience and the story that maybe the modern science isn't explaining very well. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about the stories of this journey, because it sounds like you did the same thing. You began to watch and listen from others doing this. And how has that sort of driven you on this journey of helping people?
Absolutely. So the stories, are everything, in my opinion. A lot of people will say that, it's anecdotal evidence and things like that. I'm not one that, I need a study in order to convince myself of something. You can just tell if someone's being genuine and honest. And these stories are absolutely incredible out there. So along the way, I was so inspired to start a YouTube channel and interview others like you're doing here. And I've interviewed probably 70 people now, something like that. And it's really interesting, the stories of healing. I mean, it just seems limitless. Folks with MS, folks with stroke symptoms and complications, fibromyalgia, lupus, issues, Parkinson's, issues that you're just blown away at the healing that can happen with this way of eating. And these stories are so incredible and so powerful that, I'm inspired to share these stories just because I know that person's story is going to in turn help convince someone else, to make a change in their life in terms of nutrition, and they may receive healing themselves. And with healing themselves, they're going to heal their families. They're going to heal their community, and even broader than that potentially. And that's how we heal humanity, is sharing these stories.
The personal stories, I think, have changed my life more than anything, because again, I learned about paleo through a patient's personal story, and you have some other stories within this, and you were in a serious car accident at one point, and maybe you could share your story about how that may have changed your life, and how carnivore may have come to play in all of that also.
Absolutely. So 2017, I was involved in a pretty major car crash. I was on my way to work early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was a backup on the highway. So I came to a stop, and it was at the bottom of a hill. And unfortunately, there was a semi truck that full, like 53-foot semi truck loaded with a full load of steel. We're not sure exactly the cause, but he didn't stop. There was no brakes whatsoever. and he plowed into basically the last 4 cars in line. And I was the third in line, and I received a traumatic brain injury from that, some cuts, some bruises, and things like that. My truck was essentially totaled. And the first person in line, unfortunately, God rest their soul, they didn't make it. My truck, I was told, had been launched up the retaining wall and came back down. I don't remember any of that. The paramedics did take some photos and send those to me afterwards for insurance and things. But I had a lot of complications from that for a long time. If I closed my eyes, I would fall over. I'd have major balance issues. If I would walk down, let's say a shopping mall, and I'm just walking and there's a long corridor, I would start to have vertigo effects and fall over. So I'd have to sit down in those instances. At night, if I'm laying in bed, there'd have to be a light on so that my eyes could fix on the horizon, or I would get vertigo. I'd have massive headaches. So up to a certain point in the day, it started out at roughly 30 minutes. I couldn't handle 30 minutes of life before I would get a massive migraine and have to lay down. Gradually over time, that got better. And I was able to actually go back to work after a few months. But I was on limited work. I started at 2 hours and then went up to 4 hours and then 6 hours and then 8 hours. And even at that 8 hours, I was still spent. It wasn't really worth much. Once I got home, I had to rest. So this went on for roughly 2 years at that level, and where I could basically work 8 hours. And then it started to improve just a little bit. Also at this time, if my brain was overloaded, I would get motor tics. My head would jerk uncontrollably as if I had Tourette's. And that was incredibly embarrassing, which added to the depression and the anxiety in social situations. Because once my brain was overloaded, it just started doing that and I couldn't help it. And it wouldn't stop. So I would remove myself from social situations when that happened. And I was told that this was permanent brain damage, that I lost 10% of my brain function. It may get better. I went to 2 years of physical therapy, 2 years of speech therapy. My wife is an occupational therapist, so I had a lot of help from her at home. And I was doing everything I possibly could. Now, I'm a person that would never go to the doctor. So going to these doctors, there was majorly something wrong with me to try to fix this. And gradually over time, it got a little bit better, maybe 4%, 5%, but it was still there. I still had the motor tics. Entered the carnivore diet, and gradually over time, it took roughly 5 to 6 months. And I had finally realized, I'm not jerking my head anymore. Like, I don't have any balance issues. And that was so profound.
Wow.
That something that I was told was like permanent, like physical damage that would never repair itself, actually healed itself. So, you can see why I'm so passionate about this lifestyle, this way of eating, and this project with Healing Humanity and getting the word out.
What is the diet that you've moved to? Tell us a little bit about what Adam Lacy consumes on a daily basis.
Absolutely. So I started with beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Dr. Berry has a challenge, BBBE, and you have basically something similar.
Yep.
Ice cream in there, which I've had, and that's absolutely delicious. So that's what I started with. And then over time, I actually eliminated the butter because dairy. I started noticing I was having issues with the dairy, so I couldn't do the dairy. So it's beef, bacon, and eggs. And then over time, for whatever reason, I just started taking out the bacon. So then it was just beef and eggs. And that's essentially what my diet is today. It's just beef and eggs. A lot of people add salt. I found that I can't add salt because it makes me nauseous if I consume too much of it over time.
Interesting.
And it gives me leg cramps. Which
the
is
opposite.
insane. It's the opposite. Right? Yes. So the only thing I don't know the scientific reason for this, but I feel like my body is just really good and efficient at extracting the sodium from the foods that I am eating, that anything exogenous is causing an imbalance in electrolytes.
Yeah, and for some reason we don't know what causes those things anyway, and our electrolyte imbalance. I often think it's just our story, what it might be, but I think it's just a lot of inflammation that still is leaked, lingers in our bodies, and it takes time to heal all those things. And in some cases, there are some parts of our body just may not heal, and that's kind of a challenge in all this. You mentioned something about permanence of your some of your symptoms that you are having.
Hmm.
How young? How what is? Can I ask your age? Would you share that with us?
I'm 48.
And you must have been thinking by 48, like these things are just never going to get better. And I think in some ways we think 48, oh, it's old. It's just you're not gonna you've gotten the damage, and it's like an old car. It's damaged, and you can't replace the whole chassis and motor and things like that. So you're going to live with this. Um, do you think anyone else? I mean, you're unusual in your healing. Nobody else is going to have this same effect, are they?
Well, I would say that I'm not unusual. I've heard stories from others that have healed, not necessarily exactly the same way, but in a similar fashion. But you're right. When I started this when I was 46, I felt like this is it. This is the age where stuff just starts to go downhill, and there's no way to reverse this. It's just a natural part of life, and this is how we do it in America, right?
Yeah,
45
yeah,
years old, it starts to go downhill, and by 65, you're on God knows how many medications, and potentially having a walker, and you might live an extra 5 years, and then you're gone. You kick the bucket, right? And yeah, at 48 now, I feel like I am in better shape than I was when I was 18 years old.
yeah, yeah.
I was on a martial arts demonstration team and weapons team when I was 18. So, uh, I mean, physicality, balance, and all that sort of thing was, it was really good back then, and it just feels like I'm at that level now at 48. It's incredible. It blows my mind.
What are your thoughts on why the experts in nutrition and the authorities and the publications and the uh, the the doctors continue to tell us that a plant-based diet is the very best? The American College of OBGYN has an expert opinion paper they put out about 2 years ago for pregnant and lactating women, and it recommends a plant-based,
Mm.
low-fat, and it recommends uh, uh, red wine for pregnant and lactating women. And I see these things, and I try to understand, is there some another motive to the dietary recommendations that aren't really related to true science?
That's an interesting question. So, I kind of have a little bit different viewpoint on some of those things that maybe the standard carnivore community has. So obviously there's a profit margin in there, or a profit component to this, right? So push people in a certain direction because they're moving people towards more profitable foods that essentially will sustain someone and keep them coming back for more, right?
Right, right.
Basically, you're just feeding them sugar and making them an addict, and perpetuating a customer for life. So, there's that aspect of it. But I also try to look at it from the perspective of, this plane of existence that we're on, that sort of like we're in a video game of sorts, and that's the challenge, right? And it's up to us to sort of awaken and see the challenge, see these things that's being presented before us, and figure it out, right? And that will help to create our story, right? And not just potentially heal ourselves physically, but also heal ourselves spiritually, feed into our spirit, and strengthen and embolden that. So kind of have a strange look at that. Try to look at it on the positive side, but also understand that there could be this negative side to it also.
You mentioned spirit and spirituality. Can you talk a little bit how you may incorporate spirit and spirituality into your daily life and how it may sort of fit with the carnivore lifestyle?
That's a great question, Rob. So prior to carnivore, when I was 25, I got saved, and even prior to that, I was living a carnal lifestyle. At one point, I was homeless. At one point, I had gone to jail. Was involved in DUI accidents and all kinds of crazy stuff, and I was just basically a hellraiser. And 25 years old, my son was probably 4 years old at the time, and I gave my life to Christ at that point.
Wow.
And went into many years of service with ministry and missions trips and things like that. And I got disillusioned because I got a little bit too close to the machine or the mechanism with a large church, and it just seemed far too corporate for me. And I kind of fell away from that. And over time, I realized that the church is us, right? It's within us. I don't have to go to a brick and mortar in order to be a part of God and His presence and exist in that. So it's evolved over time. I do still have a Christian belief, but it wasn't nowhere near as strong. While I was eating the standard American diet, I was in a brain fog, and it was very, very low priority. My spiritual connection with God was, I would say, next to non-existent. But enter the carnivore diet, and I feel like I've had a spiritual awakening. The fog has just lifted, and I can see things so much more clearly. I am so much more thankful and grateful for absolutely everything in my life, even the challenges that I face now. And it's given me a new confidence, renewed my spirit and spirituality that I never. It's just at a level that I never thought existed, and just even befriending folks like yourself that have very, like, some of the best spirits that you'll find on this earth. I just feel like I'm just continually being attracted to people that edify and raise up and just make the world a better place. So, and that was all a result of changing, eating spinach smoothies to eating ribeyes. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, spinach salad was my favorite, and I had kidney stones for years, and I had migraines for years, and once I found carnivore, all of that went away. Bladder bleeding, bowel bleeding, hemorrhoids, kidney stones, my depression, that brain fog that I suffered from, just gone.
Wow.
And I, like you, after finding this, and as a physician, my job is healing and helping heal. It was just like a no-brainer that I need to share this, and I write about it, I blog about it, and I'm really attracted to what you and Kerry are doing on Healing Humanity movie, and I've been involved with that, and also Reverse TV did a keto series, carnivore series, which I think is very important, and putting it out there, because it's in medicine. It's like I've got a secret that nobody else is listening to. They just haven't yet turned it over. And you mentioned something about corporate, and maybe this is the thing that I was raised Catholic, and once I went into medicine and loved science, and maybe a little bit about the corporate nature of religion turned me away from it. But I see that problem also in the corporate nature of medicine, in that it's the money and the profits that seem to take priority over the people that are suffering. And maybe that's part of the problem we see in religions in so many ways. But I personally am a faith follower in Jesus Christ, also saved me in so many ways when I realized the power of God within all of us, and kindness, generosity, love, forgiveness are just some of the really important things that I've learned. And I believe that when you reduce inflammation, that it opens your mind up to seeing the beauty in everyone, no matter what. Dr. Rob Kiltz, another beautiful, spectacular day. And I just want to send thanks to all those for watching the newest episode of Carnivore Conversations. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming platforms to gain access to the full 1-hour episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more to come. God bless.